This is Abigail's story. This story relates to what happens when a rabbit is purchased by someone who cannot or will not provide proper care, and why people should not buy bunnies as Easter gifts for children unless they understand and are willing to commit to what the rabbit needs to have a loving forever home during their decade plus lifespan. Abigail is about 2 years old, and she is a harlequin mix. Her breed is best known for being quite intelligent, and she is much sharper than other rabbits I've owned. She's a food thief, she has surprisingly good long-term memory, and she has completed multi-step problems to steal food. One of those being she will hop up onto a chair and then hop from the chair onto the table so then she can eat whatever food is on there that she's well aware she's not supposed to have. She'll also bite a door stopper on doors that open inward and then attempt to pull on them. If the door is just shut over and that is not latched, she'll pull it until it opens up enough that she can go through it. She's very friendly towards just about everyone. She's litter trained, leash trained, we're getting to point of command trained. She's also a free roaming rabbit, meaning she has the house to herself and there's just a litter basket in the corner for her to use a bathroom. She's also very social in that if I'm lying on a bed or sitting on a couch, she'll come over and jump up and lay down right next to me. Abigail did have a pretty rough start. She initially had two homes that were not the greatest. The first people who bought her eventually wound up locking her outside in a cage, and it seems they more or less kind of forgot about her. Then they eventually dropped her off at a shelter when they moved, and that was that. Abigail's second owner thought that she would be a great toy for the young children, and Abigail was returned because she apparently did not get along with the children. You could see just how relaxed she is and set back. So it seems very likely that the children were not able to correctly interact with the rabbit, and that may have fueled the situation, as rabbits are not necessarily the best pets for younger children, and they're very poor pets if a child is not able to understand what is needed from a care perspective. But as you can see right now, Abigail's lying on her side with her legs kicked out and her eyes are almost closed. When a rabbit lies in this position, it's a very vulnerable position, and so they don't do it unless they're quite relaxed and they are quite confident they're not going to be eaten by a predator. So then Abigail got a little lucky, and a loving foster family and a no-kill shelter took care of her for the better part of a year before I drove up, met her, got along, and then adopted her. You may also have heard that rabbits can be quite nasty and very fearful of people. That is true with some rabbits, but most it's really not. They can bond with people no differently than dogs or cats, to where the relationship is very complex, very developed, and very passionate of relationship. However, the big understanding there is that in a forest, a rabbit is nature's dinner. Everything will eat them, doesn't matter what's there. Pretty much everything in the forest will eat a rabbit, and so the rabbit's means of survival is obviously evading being eaten. So, especially when a rabbit is younger, they're going to have a little bit more fear, and it's just getting rid of that fear complex. When shown love and affection, it will happen, but it requires time and it requires patience. It also requires constant interaction with people, so it's doable, but it does take a commitment. Of course, if a rabbit is neglected or abused at an earlier point in their life, they may become very fearful of people and aggressive towards people, and that can make the entire adoption process more difficult and usually would require someone who has had rabbits in the past. The fact that Abigail has not become fearful of people or aggressive is practically a miracle, given her first two homes prior to going to foster care really did not show much love to her. The other reason I'm making this video is because Abigail is lucky, but many other rabbits are not. The amount of rabbits that go to shelters generally who have been purchased by people who should not have purchased them at all can be really overwhelming. 4 out of 5 bunnies that are purchased on Easter are surrendered, and some, even worse, are released into the wild where they usually survive less than 48 hours. The nationwide statistics on adoption of rabbits is a very depressing set of numbers. Rabbits that go into most shelters are many times more likely to be euthanized than they are to be adopted. So, unless a rabbit is in a no-kill shelter, they don't have a real good looking future. As it took a year to get Abigail a forever home, had she not have been taken in by foster parents who work with a no-kill shelter, it's almost certain Abigail would have been euthanized because of that long period between being surrendered and finding a home. So, I'd certainly appreciate them doing that because she's really become my little buddy. But what does this all come down to? I mention this because I've met quite a few people who I think feel that rabbits are more disposable than cats and dogs, and I want to formally disagree with that completely. Easter is one of the most depressing periods when it comes to shelters and adoption agencies because they know that they're going to get many more rabbits than they are going to be able to spend resources on. If these rabbits go to no-kill shelters, many are going to be euthanized not because they're not adoptable, but because there's just so many rabbits that there's not enough money to provide the care that is needed. So, and while there's absolutely nothing wrong with adopting or buying a rabbit on Easter, prospective parents should not do it in a whim. They really need to do their background research, and they need to do this prior to getting a rabbit. They will want to give consideration to not just the care at home, but the long-term care of an animal that can last over a decade, the financial cost of things like a good food, medical care, and whatnot, and how their situation may change in the next decade and how that would potentially affect the rabbit. It's a lot to think about, and it shouldn't be, you shouldn't purchase a rabbit and you just get the idea, oh, let's go get a bunny. You really want to think about what's going to happen down the road as well, for the sake of both you and the rabbit. Additionally, if someone can't commit to, the time spent of the relationship, it's unlikely that there's going to be a strong bond between the rabbit and whoever has purchased or adopted. So, if someone cannot or will not give the care needed to an animal, specifically a rabbit, they really shouldn't buy one. Don't buy a real rabbit for Easter, buy a stuffed rabbit, or the marshmallow rabbits. And finally, if you are thinking about a rabbit, I really want to encourage you to consider adopting instead of supporting an industry that has factory farmed rabbits and made the issues of homeless rabbits even worse. That is also the benefit with adoption in that you will get some free medical care, and the actual process itself is usually less expensive because rabbits then will often come with medical care, in some cases toys, cages, whatnot, discounts on those things. But it's not for that reason I'm encouraging. The reason I'm encouraging it most is that if you adopt a rabbit, you are almost certainly saving that rabbit's life. You are signing adoption papers, and you are formally giving this furry little creature a second chance at life. This is a creature that, just like cats and dogs and people, they understand happiness, they understand sadness, they understand joy, not to mention fear, excitement, anxiety, bliss, depression, pressure, pain, and beyond all, love. Rabbits can be very loving creatures, and if you are willing to open your hearts to the rabbit that has been fostered or at a shelter, it will, if you commit to the relationship, be one of the most rewarding things in your life. That I can promise you. So, now you can say bye-bye to Abigail, who is in what's called a bunny bread loaf, because when they lump together, they kind of look like a loaf.